Gaining access to a property or piece of land could potentially be difficult, especially with adverse possession. You might find a house and the doors are locked, or you might find a piece of land and there's a gate and the gate's locked. There might be an old rusty lock on it and you know it's abandoned, but you can't access it. Well, what are you going to do? Well, today I'm here to discuss with you a legal way of breaking and entering, which sounds absolutely horrific. And even though trespassing is a civil matter, you're going to want to do this because at the end of the day, you don't want any issues. So, where do we start? Let's start with, you've come up to a house and the house has locked doors. Well, the first thing you're going to do is assess the situation. Make sure that there is no unlocked windows. If there is, you can go through there. And yes, that is legal. But what about after that? What if you can't get into this property? And this goes for the same for the piece of land. You might be able to just simply jump a fence, or there might be a gap and you can get through. But what are you going to do if you can't? Well, this leads you to the legal turnaround. It might be illegal for you to break and enter, but it's not for someone else. Now, that sounds extremely random, and I'm not telling you to go and get your best mate to go and smash down a door, because again, that's illegal. But what you should be doing is getting a locksmith. Now, locksmiths, yes, they can be pricey. In fact, I had to pay £275 or something for a locksmith to enter a property that I'm adversely possessing. But it is what it is, and that's what you've got to pay. But then there's also the twist of fate that you need to prove that you own the property to a locksmith. And yeah, I did think I would struggle with this. In fact, I did call up 3 separate locksmiths, and 2 of them wouldn't give me access to the property unless I could prove that I owned the property. So what do you do in these turns of events? Because it's an abandoned property. You can enter it with a locksmith, but you can't get in because the locksmith won't help you out. Well, here's a simple phrase, which, okay, it's not the best phrase ever, but this is what I use to a locksmith to help me gain access to an abandoned property so I could start the adverse possession process. I said to the locksmith, my granddad had died, and this used to be his house, and I have inherited it. Lucky for you, you might have a dead grandparent, which you don't mind throwing under the bus for this. And again, that sounds absolutely horrible, but saying that you just inherited the property helps them. I guess, you know, you've just got it, you might not have the paperwork sorted, and they'll come and help you. But then what do you do once the locksmith has entered the property for you? Well, the first thing you do is you change the locks, and to be honest with you, get the locksmith to do it. I mean, you could do it yourself, but then you've got receipts. And this goes on to photographing the receipts, photographing the access process. So what I did when a locksmith was entering a property for me was I photographed everything he did. I photographed him entering the property, breaking the lock or whatever he was doing. Photographed the back of him. On the back of his t-shirt, this guy, he had the logo for the company. So I photographed that, obviously, and I captured a little bit of film footage and I put it all together in an email because, as I've said in previous videos, you have to document your process. So then you get your receipt and you photograph it, you document it, you keep your receipt because you still want the additional information. Everything's dated. If you've got any texts or phone calls, screenshots, just save everything and document it all. So, enter a property with a locksmith. Yes, it's unethical to say you've inherited it. I'm not going to say it's not, okay? You know, it's an unethical life hack, I guess. But when you are trying to adversely possess a property, you can't just go and smash down a door. You know, I don't want anyone to be arrested. I don't want anyone to struggle. This is why I'm making these videos on adverse possession. I'm telling you things that I know from experience. I'm telling you what you should do, and it's the best way to do it. And once the locks have changed, you have the keys to the property. You can finally access your land, your house, your bungalow, your pub, whatever you are adversely possessing, you've got access. And that's when the fun begins. That's when the adverse possession stuff truly begins. You've put up your adverse possession notice. You now have access to the property. And that's when the fun begins and the time starts ticking, and you can finally move forwards into your adverse possession process. Now, as I said, if there's a gap in the fence, go through it. If there's a smashed window, there's your entrance. You don't have to do it then. But please make sure to photograph everything, because you're going to replace that fence. You are going to replace that window. So please make sure to photograph everything, document everything, and use a proper locksmith with a proper company with a proper receipt. That's your best way of gaining access to the property. Have a lovely day, and I shall see you guys all in the next video. Goodbye. Oh, and quickly, side note, for legal reasons, I don't want anyone to do this to break and enter, to steal. Okay, this isn't a stealing video, this is about adverse possession. So please make sure to do everything legally and with adverse possession in mind. Goodbye.